the natural world, home to creatures of all kinds, those of flesh and bone, and those of cardboard and plastic.
Sun is high in the sky. We're in the mountains. Let's go find ourselves a board game.
Today's ascent, hot and rocky. The flowers were pretty, though.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of thousands of backers' tears flowing down the mountain. Those are the dreams of Kickstarter backers whose pledges never showed up.
These Rocky Mountain dusky wings were everywhere. This fellow kept coming back to say hello. It was a real scorcher, so I availed myself of the river's bounty. The tears were a bit salty, but they did the trick.
There isn't a single soul up here, which normally wouldn't be a bad thing. Most board games don't want more than 4 people gathering around them at any given time anyway. But Kickstarter board games are a different breed. There's nothing like a good crowd to draw a Kickstarter board game out into the open. Fortunately, I came prepared.
This is a genuine leather wallet, also known as Kickstarter bait. Unfortunately, it's empty, which is why I brought along my girlfriend to fill it.
This place is perfect! Let's see what wild game this brings up. Indispensable board game hunter gear. Good pair of binos.
We waited. Hours passed. Nothing came. The team started to get tired. The heat was unbearable.
There it is. Finally. Oh, she's a beauty. Take a look. Amazing. I don't believe it. That's Endless Winter. Kickstarter darling in the early 2020s. Raised over $1 million. Look at that textured box.
It took the bait. I had to get a closer look. Kickstarter games can be volatile, but I couldn't help myself. Oh, we made it. We made it. All right. Okay, now that we've got this creature properly tranquilized, we can open up this beautiful textured box and get a look at the components that are inside of it. Let's do it. Wow. Plaster papers on these rotund mammoths. These succulently sculpted miniatures. It's amazing how this wash makes them look like they've been carved from bone. It's uncanny. You have not truly lived until you've held this manual and pinched between your fingers this strange, glossy material. Feels like the misbegotten product of Penelope Paper and Peter Papyrus's steamy weekend together in the Mediterranean. Yep, let's just say that if I was a board game and Endless Winter and I were on the same dating app, I would definitely swipe right. It's the Ice Age like you've never seen it before, bombastically rendered to the tune of almost $1 million, catapulted at publisher Fantasia Games by thousands of board game fans on the crowdfunding platform Kickstarter. Kickstarter board games have earned a reputation for being a bit hit or miss, and the reasons for that are pretty complicated, but basically, the crowdfunding model can incentivize the production of games that are incredible to look at, but extremely difficult to play. Most of the greatest board game titles to have emerged onto the market within the last decade or so have been full-blooded stallions, fresh from the Kickstarter stables. But there have also been a lot of disappointments. So, where does Endless Winter Paleo-Americans fit into all of this? Is it a caveman's curvy Kickstarter crush? Or is it another gorgeous disappointment? Let's swan dive into the Stone Age and take a look. Before we get any further with this review, I'll need to let you know that the components you see in this video are from the Kickstarter edition of this game. The retail version will look a little different. It'll come in a smaller box. The player boards in it will be single layer, and the miniatures won't have that bone wash on them. Now, you're probably looking at this box and thinking, excellent, a game about Cro-Magnons. It's probably simple and uncivilized, just like real Cro-Magnons were. And no, you're absolutely wrong. In Endless Winter, you and your friends will become Paleo-American chieftains obsessed with the #1 prize commodity in the Ice Age: points. Over the course of 4 rounds, you will hunt animals, attract new members to your tribe, cultivate vibrant cultures for your different nations, and build these tiny tents that you can move around on the map, with all of these actions contributing to your point total at the end of the game. When the 4th round is over, congratulations, you've survived the Ice Age. Everyone will total up their points, and whoever has the most will be the cavemaniest caveman to ever cavemanny in all of cavemandom, and everybody else will just be grouchy people who bash rocks into spearheads and grunt. Turns out the Endless Winter's not actually endless. The winter that is over in 4 rounds just didn't quite carry the same punchiness for the Fantasia Games marketing department. At the beginning of the game, you'll be given yourself, represented by a cool miniature, and accomplices, represented by charming bits of wood. When you want to do something, you'll indicate you'll like to do that thing by plunking one of those bad boys onto the spot on the board associated with that thing. Want to hunt a mammoth? Place your loyal tribesperson on the hunting spot. Want to recruit a shaman to your tribe? Slide your ambassador to the recruit tribespeople spot. If you decide to undertake one of these actions in person, you'll place your plastic miniature on that action. And if that action aligns with your chieftain's affinity printed on their special card, then you'll get a fun bonus. After you've carried out the action, it's the next person's turn. Once everyone has placed all of their people, it's time to end the round. Do that 4 times, and the game is over. We have now reached the scary part of explaining this game, which is identifying every action and discussing the litany of rules attached to them. And that is way above my pay grade, so we are going to take you to the Lab of Complicated Rules.
Oh, is it that time already? Find a seat, everyone, wherever you can. My name's Dr. Jethro Jumble. Welcome to the Lab of Complicated Rules. I've been with this lab since it was first started following Fantasy Flight Games' publication of Tannhauser. Before we get into today's discussion, I'd like to remind all of you that our Warhammer 40k lecture series continues every Thursday in the Corworley Lecture Hall at 7 o'clock p.m. This week's installment, coming out in Camorra, homoerotic bonding among Drukari Kabbalites in 9th edition, promises to be enlightening. And now, on to today's subject. I believe your host informed me that you are all wanting to learn about the finer points of Endless Winter by Fantasia Games. Before we go any further, I'd just like to point out that Endless Winter is less a game so much as it is a deeply developed paleoanthropological experiment designed to challenge current reductive interpretations of ancient societies. To do so, it presents what we might call Cro-Magnon living as a series of interlocking mechanisms. The backbone of these mechanisms, of course, is that worker placement mechanic that has already been explained to you. The flesh that hangs upon that skeleton, though, largely arrives in the deck of cards that every player is given at the start of the game. This deck represents that player's tribal population, which will fluctuate as the game continues. They will add new people to their tribe and subtract people from their tribe as necessity may require. To recruit a new member, a player need only place one of their representatives upon this action here. After generating some labor, for as any academic knows, that is the only way by which a human can enter this world, they will collect one of the cards from this selection of 5 and add that straight to their hand. People grew up a little faster back then, you see. They can only ever take 1 copy of each type of card on their turn, however. This is because twins were not invented until the 20th century. These culture cards are an appendage to the deck-building mechanic. Instead of adding new people to your tribe, you may choose to deepen your nation's collective sense of identity by giving them things to buy, like dugout canoes, or cave painting materials, or burial sites. Speaking of death, your tribe's people will expire. This is a very good thing, as it allows you to prune your tribe of less useful people, like tribesmen. When you see this burial icon, that means one of your people has kicked the proverbial bucket, and they'll need to be interred in your communal burial ground. Nothing enriches the life of your community quite like worship rituals and religious rites. Whenever you see an idol icon like this one, that means you can move your token up this track. Get your token to the top of this track and you will score points based on the number of people in your tribe who have died. There is a competitive wrinkle to all of that, of course. If your icon gets to the top of that track before any other players do, then you'll score more points for your unalive people than they will for theirs. Another system in this game is designed to recreate the fact that a tribe's ability to prosper in the Paleolithic was largely dependent upon their ability to marshal the vibrant biodiversity of the era to their advantage. By going to this place on the board, a player may spend some labor and construct a campsite on this terrain board. If a cunning chieftain is able to place 3 tents surrounding a certain point between 3 tiles, they can replace those 3 tents with a village, which is a permanent symbol of their power in the area. A tribe's dominion over a tile is measured in influence. Each tent presence on a tile provides 1 influence, while a village provides 2 influence on each tile it touches. During the eclipse phase, the player who has the most influence in any given area will harvest the benefits of that tile. If 2 or more players are tied for the most influence in any area, they will each collect those benefits. We also have the hunting grounds. This symbolizes the complex traditions.
Dr. Jumble?
What?
That's all the time we have for today. The American Psychological Association just released new research saying that people shouldn't spend more than 4 minutes in the lab of complicated. Oh, you know what they say about complicated rules.
That if taken 6 at a time, they'll give you the best night of your life.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's what the dean told me about the pills I took at the department disco party.
Yeah. Well, great. Awesome. I'll just take them then.
Oh, sure. Take them.
Cool.
Goodbye.
Wow, that got a little intense back there. A couple things he forgot to mention while we're headed back to the table. First of all, we've got this hunting grounds board. That functions pretty much exactly the way that you think it will. Over the course of the game, animals will come out onto the board, and you'll have the option to hunt them, which means you capture them, and you can keep them alive during the game to score points for them at the end, or you can tip them. And by tip, I don't mean leaving them $20 at the end of your meal to help them pay for tuition. I mean the kind of tipping that leaves you with a mess of meat and bones to use for food and tools during the Ice Age. Additionally, we've got this. This is the megalith board. You'll actually have 4 of these that you'll conjoin together to create kind of a unique megalith board every game. When you receive a megalith placement, you'll be able to place one of your megaliths on one of the spaces available in this board. And if you cover up a thing, then you get the thing that you cover up. So if you put one here, that's 2 food for you. Additionally, you can score points for your megaliths by stacking them. So if you have 4 megaliths set on this board, you can stack your megalith on top of those like this, and that will score you a bunch of points. And now that we've covered those things, let's get back to the table, because it is pretty busy out here. Place workers, hunt animals, climb tracks. This is all very thrilling, but we haven't even gotten to the best part of the game yet. Buckle up, folks, because we're about to get into the eclipse phase. So we're in the Paleolithic, which means that there's no light pollution around, and we can see the sun pretty easily, and the moon, it turns out, and when they converge, magic things happen. After you've played your last worker, you will have some cards left over in your hand. These cards will probably be some tribespeople with maybe a culture card or 2. You'll select a number of these cards, any number you really want, and you'll put them face down in a stack above your board. Every player will repeat this after they've played their 3rd worker, and once everyone has done that, you'll all reveal your eclipse piles simultaneously. You'll then count up the number of hands you have on each of the cards that you put into your eclipse pile. Whoever put the most hands in their pile gets to go first next round. But that's not all. At this point, the game essentially turns into the chocolate room from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Everything turns edible. You're going first next turn? Awesome. You get a prize. You have tribes people in your eclipse pile? Sweet, they transform into eclipse mode and give you a prize. You placed villages? Prize. You placed megaliths? Prize. You put a bunch of sacred rocks in front of your house? You get a prize. It's a stuff-pocalypse on a scale even the most material rat in the gutter could struggle to picture. And you don't even have to do any extra work to get it. It's like finding out your relative died and left you the dog that you always coveted, but you don't have to feel any guilt about getting it. Take stuff guilt-free, which is a great slogan for the Ice Age, come to think of it. Except not really, at least not for the version of the Paleolithic that you're probably familiar with. A better slogan for that might be starve more, eat less, or furries rule, non-furries get frostbite, or something like that. Hold up. I can't get into my quibbles with this game until we acknowledge the fact that you survived the rules explanation for Endless Winter. Give yourself a hand, go get a snack. Maybe like go eat some celery with some raisins or something gluten-free. I don't know, just eat whatever you want. And while you're doing that, enjoy this clip from our musical Ooga Ooga Booga, which translates to The Saber-Tooth of Seville.
But Michelle, please stay with me. Remember our star.
Gronk, you knew this couldn't end any other way.
Michelle!
Goodbye, Gronk.
Put 2 stones together and they'll create a flare. Take 2 stones apart and they'll never be the same.
Gosh, that part gets me every time, because you've got Gronk who's super in love with Michelle, but Gronk is a saber-toothed tiger, and Michelle is the beautiful princess of her tribe, but she's betrothed to marry Mooga, who she's not even in love with, and she's really in love with Gronk, but then they have to split ways, and thanks for watching that. All right.
There's been a mammoth in the room since the beginning of this video. A mammoth that I've been poking and prodding at, which I must now turn around and confront directly. This is not a game that you should play if you want to feel like a caveman. And that might sound crazy because every particle of it is slathered with colorful Paleolithic pageantry. There are mammoths here. Mammoths! I mean, what a perfect opportunity to put some hair on your back and become a cave person. But, you want to hunt a mammoth? Well, it turns out it's not really all that involved. You just put one of your wooden figures on a place and pick up a card. You want to hunt a saber-toothed cat, thinking it'll give you some kind of fight? Well, it's the same process. You'll just put a wooden figure on a space and pick up a card. Maybe you want to fellowship some people into your tribe. Well, no grunting required. You're just going to put down some cards and pick up a card. Maybe you want to build a village, and get that feeling of like carving an existence out of the wilderness. It's going to cost you 3 food. So you can tip your woolly rhino to give you 5 food and 2 tools, which will allow you to build a village and move a camp, which will give you 3 influence in that area, which will yield 2 points at the end of the round. And why are there so many numbers in the Ice Age? You may also think of the Paleolithic as a time when people had to make difficult decisions and a constant fight for survival, and no, you're totally wrong. The Ice Age was actually like a huge judge at your elementary school science fair, handing out prizes to everyone who showed up, with Jim Bob Billy getting the same prize for his baking soda volcano that you got for your diagram of black holes. The Paleolithic was so generous that if it accidentally gave you something that you didn't need, you could say, "No, Mom, I already got this," and it would let you transform that thing into something that you did need. If you want the satisfaction of grinding an existence out of an unforgiving wilderness, or napping obsidian into spearheads, do something else, like camping. Because this ain't it. Though the game itself is not endless, 4 rounds, tot up your points, crown the winner, there are parts of it that feel interminable, like the rules explanation. My goodness, if you are not devoting 2 hours of your day to romance this manual weeks in advance of playing this game with your friends, you are setting yourself up to fail. If you are tasked with teaching this game to anyone new, I highly recommend coming up with some kind of organization to make sure you move through this information as efficiently as possible. Although the rule set is pretty simple on its face, it's easy to get lost in the weeds of explaining the finer points of the burial track while all of your friends are asleep or on their phones. Speaking of endless, the setup for this game is no joke. It takes a village to get this game together. Give your friends jobs to do. Perhaps one of them will be the master of the hunting grounds, or perhaps the lord of the religion track. Those titles have some pretty nice rings to them, and I think they'll get pretty excited about helping you set up this game. With all that out of the way, I can talk about what I love about this game, which is actually quite a lot. Critics of this game will say, and have said, that it is the Ice Age defanged and declawed, and I pretty much said that about 30 seconds ago. But they present the ease with which a player can do everything in this game as a flaw. And that's a valid criticism, If the game doesn't work for you, then that's totally fine. You don't have to play it. But I think it stems from a miscommunication between the game and the player. You see, this game is massive. I can't fit even a half of it on this little table that I use for reviews. And in that sprawl, it seems to ask the player to carve a unique path through its frameworks to victory. To phrase that better, it seems to invite the player to specialize in something. In spirit, though, this game is much more like Minecraft's creative mode than it is like Elden Ring. The game offers you 0 resistance. It never takes anything away from you. You never die, and the game is constantly giving you validation as a player. Every eclipse phase feels like the game giving you a pat on the back and being like, good job, kid, here's another $50. Go spend it however you want. The materials for everything are constantly at your fingertips. All you need to do is assemble them into points. And if it feels too easy to do everything, well, that's kind of the point. Doing everything is a feature, not a bug. Turns out that you need to be able to hunt, bolster your tribe, develop a culture, and create a religion in order to survive in the Ice Age. All those things are kind of bound up together. Attempting to specialize in something, like maybe you devote your game to hunting animals on the hunting grounds, and you ignore the megalith board. It's a bit like playing chess with half your pieces. The decisions that you make, then, won't determine whether you interact with certain features of the game at all. Rather, you'll have to decide in which order you'd like to interact with them. Do you want to devote a lot of your time in the early game to collecting animals to kickstart your economy, set you up for big turns later? Would you rather explode across the terrain board and get a nice splashy eclipse phase early in the game to stimulate your economy that way? The order in which you interact with those systems will greatly impact your score at the end of the game. And making those decisions is quite fun. It's entertaining, and I like it. Also, there is no text on the cards, or on the player boards, or anywhere in the game. So you don't have to worry about reading tiny words, and there's no text-based modifiers that you have to keep track of. And that is awesome. We recommend this game with caveats. As fun as it is, games with this number of components and this number of rules are not for everyone. If you are curious as to whether you and your friends might enjoy a bigger board game that provides a more thinky experience, this is an excellent choice for you. It will allow you to burn your brains without punishing you too severely for it. This game really wants you to succeed, where a lot of other games of its ilk would want you to fail. Now, if you are a big burly board gamer looking for sexy new Euro games in your area, Endless Winter is something that you should definitely pick up, at least to try it. The design here is ambitious. It is interesting. You might hear the terms, this is a deck building, area control, worker placement game, and think, well, that's the most silly thing I've ever heard. But all of those systems come together into a great coherent package that I think any hobbyist would enjoy interacting with and experiencing. If you get this game and you find it's too easy to solve and it's just not challenging enough, I'd recommend looking into one of the 3 box expansions currently available for it. First, we've got Ancestors. That will introduce new tribespeople to the game. You can kind of mix and match with the tribespeople that come in the base box. It also comes with some new animal cards that you can insert into your animal deck for more variety, and that's really fun. There's the Rivers and Rafts expansion, which is my personal favorite, that adds a river to the terrain board that you can fish from. The fish give you really cool prizes, and that's a good time. It also gives you landmarks that players can compete for control over. That'll give you extra points during the game. That's really fun. It will also give you a new tribesperson that will allow you to move other players' camps around the board. That's really interesting. The third box is probably the weirdest, and that's the Cave Paintings expansion. It comes with a whiteboard with this beautiful cave drawing on it that you can interact with through a new cave painting action. Introducing a new action to the game causes everyone to spread their workers more thinly, and usually leaves people feeling like they could have done a little more if the game had just been a little longer. So for all you people out there who want more difficult decisions to make during this game, the Cave Paintings expansion, in my opinion, is a great addition to what's here. And that is the review of Endless Winter. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day on the internet. Good luck out there. Stay safe. Goodbye.
Yep, this looks good. thanks for letting us get a good look at you, buddy. I go find some credit cards to munch on, huh?